All right, tonight we crawl into a time long before air conditioning, before fans, even before the idea that you could control indoor temperatures. You're not in a swanky loft or a suburban home anymore. Nope, you're a medieval peasant and it's the middle of summer. The sun hasn't even cleared the horizon yet, but your tiny thatched cottage is already baking like a pie left too close to the fire. The first thing you notice when you open your eyes, besides the fact that you're covered in sweat, is the smell. A charming cocktail of damp wool, stale hay, yesterday's stew, and the unmistakable funk of a family that doesn't bathe often enough. Your head is pounding, your back is sticky, and there's a bee trapped somewhere between the wooden rafters above. You roll off your straw mattress, careful not to disturb the dog, your youngest sibling, or the chicken that wandered in last night. The air is thick and still clinging to your skin, like wet linen. You crack open the wooden shutter, no glass of course, just a crude plank, and the morning light slams into the room. It's already hot, delightful. You stumble outside barefoot, on the packed dirt, and let the first breeze of the day lick your face. It's not refreshing. It's warm and dry and smells like manure. But you take it because you know what's coming, a day of labor under a sun that has absolutely no chill. And the roof over your head, a thatched dome of hay and twigs, designed with more optimism than science. It traps heat like a kettle, especially after years of patchwork repairs by someone who sort of knew what they were doing. It might keep the rain out, but not the heat, and certainly not the spiders. Historians still argue whether peasant housing was better or worse than we imagine. Some say the density of villages created airflow problems. Others suggest tightly clustered homes helped people share cooling strategies. Either way, nobody was exactly thriving. The walls probably wattle, and daub sticks slathered in a mix of clay straw and, yes, animal dung. Surprisingly insulating in winter, but in summer, they radiate heat like pizza stones. You lean against one and immediately regret it. Still, it's home. You look around and see the rest of the village stirring. Everyone's in the same overheated boat. Some are already hauling buckets to the stream, others are airing out bedding in the faint hope that sunshine kills fleas. Children run barefoot, dodging puddles and goose poop, shrieking like banshees, while their parents shout half-hearted warnings from doorways. You duck into the lean-to that passes for a kitchen. A few clay pots, some blackened iron tools, and a fire pit. You'd rather not light yet. Who wants more heat? Breakfast is the same as yesterday. Stale rye bread, maybe some curds if they haven't spoiled. You chew without tasting your mouth too dry to enjoy much anyway. The water jug is empty. Again, you sigh and grab it, trudging toward the communal well. It's already got a line. You greet your neighbors with nods and eye rolls, silently sharing in the misery of morning heat and aching joints. Someone jokes that the devil himself must be tending the weather today. Everyone laughs, but no one disagrees. You spot a priest walking past, beads in hand, murmuring a prayer to Saint Medard Protector from bad weather. You silently ask for a breeze. Just one. Nothing happens. There's a weird comfort in the routine, though. The misery is shared, and that makes it bearable. Everyone's house is a furnace. Everyone's pillow smells like sweat and mildew. Everyone's just trying to get through the season with their sanity skin and crops intact. And speaking of crops, the fields await. So you drink carefully because clean water is a luxury and march toward the tool shed to grab your hoe. The day's only just begun, and already your underarms are leaking more than the thatched roof did in last week's rainstorm. Here's your first fun fact of the day. Medieval peasants burned an average of 4,000 to 5,000 calories daily just trying to stay alive. Manual labor in medieval Europe wasn't working out. It was just living. No treadmill, no sweat-wicking fabric, and definitely no post-workout smoothies. Fringe detail, some peasants smeared mud on their arms and necks to cool off during long workdays. It dried and cracked, forming a crusty armor against sunburn and bugs. You might try it later if you can find a cleanish patch of dirt. Your only real shield against the sun is a floppy straw hat and the faint hope of cloud cover. SPF, sure, just rub some pig fat on your face and hope for the best. That's not a joke. Grease and soot were common sunblocks, not effective, not pleasant, but better than nothing. You spend the morning bent over rows of barley, the sun creeping higher and meaner by the minute. Sweat runs down your back, soaks into your tunic, and attracts every fly in a 5-mile radius. You swat them away, curse under your breath, and keep working. By midday, you're dizzy. You stumble to a shady patch under an old oak curl into a sweaty ball and close your eyes. You won't sleep too hot, but resting is critical. Everyone knows someone who collapsed in the fields and never got back up. That's the unspoken fear. Hanging in the summer air heat kills. Quietly, slowly, brutally. No sirens, no ambulances, just silence, followed by a quick funeral and a lot of side-eye at the sun. And yet somehow you'll do it all again tomorrow. Because what choice do you have? You sit in the patchy shade of the oak, catching your breath, but even the breeze feels like someone exhaling into your face after chewing garlic. It's not relief, it's mockery. And yet, for a medieval peasant like you, this is peak luxury. You lean back against the tree trunk, its bark rough but cool compared to everything else, and glance back toward your home. A structure that barely qualifies as shelter but somehow keeps standing year after year. Your cottage is a marvel of budget architecture. The walls, as we mentioned, are made of wattle and daub, a delicate balance of sticks, straw mud, and dung. Sounds awful, but believe it or not, they do a decent job of buffering against extremes. In the summer, they retain a tiny pocket of night cool air, if you're lucky enough to have kept your door closed all morning. In the winter, they trap in just enough warmth from the central hearth to keep your toes from falling off. But the real star of the show is the gaps. Oh yes, the charming cracks between the timber beams, the small holes where birds sometimes nest, and the door that doesn't quite shut because it warped in last year's flood. These so-called flaws are your accidental allies. They let air flow gently, inconsistently, and full of dust. Yes, but still. It's airflow. It's your medieval HVAC system. Historians still argue whether these gaps were an intentional design feature or just the result of poor craftsmanship. Some say it was deliberate to allow ventilation to let smoke escape, to avoid trapping heat like a sauna. Others believe it was just peasants doing their best with limited tools and no architectural degree. The truth is probably somewhere in between. Make it stand up, hope it breathes. You head back inside for a moment just to check on things. Stepping into the cottage is like walking into a clay oven. The air is thick, unmoving, and smells suspiciously like last week's cabbage stew. You lift a corner of the thatched roof to peek at the sky, not for structural reasons, just because the hole's already there. And here's a fun twist. Thatched roofs, while notorious fire hazards, actually have decent thermal properties. The thick layer of straw insulates against both heat and cold. In summer, it traps the cooler air from night, though only for a short while, like a very lazy fridge. Some wealthier peasants add a second inner ceiling of linen or thin wood to reflect the heat downward, but you're lucky if your rafters don't drop twigs into your soup. You glance at the hearth. The fire's out. Good. It hasn't been lit since last night, and you plan to keep it that way until sundown. Any cooking has to be done outside unless you feel like turning the inside of your house into a sauna for the sake of porridge. In the corner, you've got a tiny window. No glass, just a wooden shutter, and maybe a strip of oiled cloth to keep the bugs out. Right now, it's wide open. A breeze might pass through sometime this week. You think about knocking out another hole on the opposite wall to create a cross draft, but that would involve tools you don't have and a prayer you're not sure the local saint is ready to answer. And let's not forget the floor-packed dirt, or if you're fancy, stone slabs scavenged from old ruins. On days like this, those stones are your best friends. They stay cool longer than anything else in the house. You lie down flat on your belly cheek, pressed against the stone, and exhale. For a moment, just a breath, it's bliss. You remember your neighbor, old Matilda, who swears she buried a jug of water under her kitchen floor, and it stays cold all summer. Is it true historians still debate whether peasants engaged in primitive passive cooling methods like that, or if Matilda's just full of it? You think about trying it, but you also think about the rats that might find it first. There's not much you can do about the heat itself, so instead you focus on managing its sources. That means no cooking indoors, no lighting candles unless absolutely necessary, and no unnecessary movement. Of course, this directly contradicts the reality of peasant life, which is all movement, all the time, fetching, hauling, scrubbing, herding, mending. But still, you try. Your clothes don't help. A linen tunic and coarse wool over it. Yes, wool, because it's what you've got. Contrary to modern logic, peasants wore layers, even in the summer sometimes, to protect against sunburn, sometimes because they didn't own anything lighter, and sometimes because modesty rules were enforced by the church. You sweat, you curse, you consider heresy. Then you roll up your sleeves and go outside. And speaking of outside, your yard is shared with a goat. The goat is not helpful. She chews on your sandal, then bleats loudly as if you're the problem. Still, animals provide warmth in winter, and occasionally a breeze block in summer. Just don't stand downwind. Near the fence, you notice a trick. Some peasants use wet, hanging sheets, linen soaked in water, draped in doorways or windows. As the wind passes through, it cools slightly primitive evaporative cooling. It's not much, but on days like this, even barely noticeable, feels like a divine gift. Back inside, your family has dragged a bench to the shadiest wall. They sit in silence, fanning themselves with palm fronds or whatever passes for one, an old book cover, maybe. Your youngest sibling has filled a bowl with cool stream water and dipped their feet. You consider joining them, then remember the last time, a leech. Still, it's amazing what you get used to. The stink, the heat, the damp sheets, the sunburn. You don't complain, not because you're brave, but because complaining wastes energy, and you need every ounce for what comes next. Soon it'll be time to head back to the fields. But for now, you sit in the doorway, half in sun, half in shadow, listening to the flies buzz and the distant clatter of a blacksmith's hammer. The air smells like dirt and dried herbs. You've survived another morning in your accidental oven of a home, and you'll do it again tomorrow. Because this, as they say, is the life. You wake up from your heat nap, under the tree with a start, your face stuck to your own forearm, mouth dry as sawdust. The sun hasn't moved an inch. Or maybe it has, but it's impossible to tell. When every hour feels like the world's longest bread-baking session time becomes meaningless. You sit up, blinking into the glare, and brace yourself for the afternoon stretch. Your feet ache, your back throbs, and your skin feels like it's been dusted with sand. You glance down and realize it sort of has. Everything in summer sticks to you: dirt, pollen, dog-hair judgment. You brush yourself off, slap a mosquito, and shuffle toward home. Your stomach growls. It's time for a meal, or whatever version of meal your household can rustle up without lighting a fire. You step into the cottage and instantly regret it. The heat inside is somehow worse. Maybe it's the thatch holding in the stale warmth, or maybe it's just the 5 bodies crammed into a single room with one small window. Either way, it feels like you've walked into a stew pot if the stew were made of unwashed humans. But there's one little refuge left: the floor. Stone slabs pulled long ago from a Roman ruin nearby line the center of your hut. They're cracked and uneven, but they've held on to some of the night's chill like buried treasure. You lie down flat on your belly again, face pressed against the coolest one you can find. Your tunic rucks up in the back, but you don't care. For 60 whole seconds, you are a content, mildly damp pancake of a human. Fact time: many medieval peasant homes were deliberately built with packed earth or stone floors precisely because of this cooling effect. It wasn't luxury, it was practicality. A fancy wooden floor, that's a fire hazard and a splinter trap. Dirt or stone. That's medieval air conditioning at its finest. But even your precious stones can't stay cool forever. The sun keeps doing its thing. You sit up and decide you can't stay in the house much longer. It's cooking everyone from the inside out. Outside, at least you've got the illusion of airflow and enough space to yell into the void. You head to the stream a few hundred feet away. It's not exactly a swimming hole, but it is running water, and that's good enough. You roll up your trousers and wade in ankle deep. The sensation is immediate relief. Cold water, warm air mud between your toes. Nature's foot spa. You kneel down and splash your face, hoping the water hasn't been upstreamed by livestock too recently. This is your bath. No scented bubbles, no candlelight, just mud, minnows, and maybe a frog staring at you judgmentally. Medieval bathing customs were a wild mix. Some towns had public bathhouses until the church got twitchy about nudity. But in the countryside, peasants like you made do with rivers, buckets, or dreams. Historians still argue how often peasants bathed. Some say once a week, others say once a month. A few fringe sources suggest peasants didn't wash at all unless it rained sideways. You bathe when the heat is unbearable, or when the itching from your flea bites becomes a full-time job. You strip off your tunic, squatting waist-deep in the water. A fish skitters past. You try not to think about what else is in here. The water is cloudy warm, on top cool below. You scrub your arms with sand, then your chest, then run water through your hair. No soap, just friction and prayer. Suddenly, you remember what old Elric said, that bathing too often opens the pores and lets in bad spirits. You're not superstitious, but you did get a rash last time. You eye the surface of the water and mutter something vaguely apologetic to Saint Winifred, just in case. As you head home, water dripping from your sleeves, you feel 10 pounds lighter and 10 degrees cooler. The sun, however, disagrees. It turns your damp clothes into steamers and your skin into a sticky mess within minutes. Ah, the fleeting joys of cleanliness. Inside the cottage, your siblings have dragged the straw mattress closer to the door, to catch any rogue breezes. You join them flopping onto the scratchy bedding. It pokes you in 3 different places, and there's a sharp smell of wet grass and old sweat. You sigh and try not to inhale too deeply. Here's a weird truth. Medieval mattresses were stuffed with hay or straw and often changed just once a year. Maybe twice if you were rich or got scabies. The fabric was linen if you were lucky, burlap if you weren't. And under the hay, a simple wooden frame or nothing at all. You slept like a sardine in a haystack, flat, itchy, and probably with a chicken or 2 at your feet. And then there's the pillow, or rather a bag of dried peas someone swears helps with neck support. It doesn't. It sounds like a maraca when you shift and smells faintly of onions. Still, you wrap your arm around it because it's better than nothing. This is where the quirky stuff shines. Some peasants believed placing herbs under your mattress, lavender, rosemary, even garlic, would ward off disease and nightmares. You've got a sprig of something under yours. No idea what it is. Could be mint, could be mold. You're not checking. You glance toward the fire pit, untouched today, and feel proud. The fewer indoor flames, the better. You'll eat cold porridge or yesterday's bread and save the cooking for sunset. It's just too hot. You roll over trying to find the least itchy spot on the straw pile. Someone's foot is in your back. You nudge it away, only to have your little brother sneeze into your face. Charming, but still for one quiet moment, with the sun high and everything slowed by heat, there's peace. You are sticky, scratched, sunburnt, and slightly stinky, but you are surviving. You give up on the straw mattress before it can stab you one more time. There's no comfort in that scratchy nest right now, not when the entire house feels like the inside of a clay bread oven, and your siblings are radiating body heat like livestock. So you do what many peasants do when the air turns thick and the cottage begins to hum with the smell of damp wool and human fatigue. You go outside. The sun is cruel now, no longer a bright morning glow, but a heavy presence like a blacksmith's hammer just waiting to drop. Still, the air outside moves, and that's enough. You step out barefoot again, the ground warm, but not blistering. Chickens scatter at your feet, and the goat glares at you from the shade, chewing something she definitely stole from your dinner last night. You sit down on a log near the edge of the field, where a low hedgerow offers a narrow band of shade. The earth smells of hay dirt and dung, because that's exactly what it is. You pick up a twig and idly draw lines in the dust, trying not to think about chores you're avoiding or the insects crawling up your tunic. Your cottage may be home, but it's also a prison in weather like this. The hearth you cherish in winter becomes an enemy in summer. The walls that shield you from wind also trap every breath of your family's collective sweat. You might not have wallpaper, but you've got mildew patterns forming like medieval Rorschach tests. The ceiling leaks in storms and sags with mold, but you still love it. Sort of. But in summer, outdoor life is survival. Most of your time is spent outside anyway, plowing, planting, weeding, tending to animals, gathering wood, fetching water, complaining to the sky. Inside is for sleep, bad weather, or hiding from your neighbor when you break her jug and don't want to admit it. Here's something that's both a blessing and a curse. The open-air lifestyle means fewer, suffocating interiors. But it also means you can't escape the heat. There's no retreat. You can't walk into a room and flip a switch. The best you can hope for is a slight breeze or a well-placed rock to sit on. Historians still argue how much time peasants spent indoors versus outdoors. Some claim homes were only for nighttime, while others suggest people lounged indoors more often, especially elders or the ill. But most agree that from sunrise to sundown, if your body could be used for labor, it was expected to be somewhere under the sun. So you stay outside. You watch other villagers shuffling past, some with buckets, some with baskets, one dragging a yoke twice her size and muttering about her lazy husband. Children shriek as they chase geese, and a mangy dog barks at a butterfly like it owes him money. You stroll toward the livestock pen, where pigs lie half submerged in their own mud pools like tiny snorting aristocrats. You envy them. Mud is nature's sunblock and spa wrap in one. You make a mental note to accidentally fall into the pig pen later, just for cooling purposes, obviously. But for now, you settle on a rock under an old tree and chew a strip of dried turnip someone called jerky with a straight face. It tastes like leather and dirt, but it's food. Kind of. The stench of the house trails behind you even out here. Medieval homes didn't have plumbing, ventilation, or proper waste management. The chamber pot got dumped outside, often right out the front door. And if your aim was poor, well, that was your neighbor's problem now. That's why many peasants spent their leisure time outside. Not because it was idyllic, but because the alternative was inhaling the aromas of stew sweat and chamber pot residue under a thatched lid. Quirky tip, some villagers hung herbs, like mint thyme or rue, near doors and windows, not just for scent, but to purify the air and ward off evil. You've tried it. The rosemary fell into your soup, the sage got eaten by the goat, and the evil still seems very much present. But at least the fresh air, such as it is, doesn't feel like it's wrapping around your lungs like a damp blanket. You hear the church bell in the distance, one slow chime. It's mid-afternoon, and the day is now officially dragging. No one's moving fast. Even the cows look sleepy, and cows are already professional loungers. You shuffle over to the communal well to refill your water jug. The path is dusty, the sun high, and your shadow tight beneath you, like it's trying to crawl into it. You see your reflection in the water, sun-reddened cheeks, hair stuck to your forehead, eyes half closed from heat. You look like you've aged 10 years since breakfast. At the well, you trade news with another peasant, a woman with a wide-brimmed hat and a baby on her hip. She says the Lord's messenger passed through earlier. Said there's a heat wave coming, she adds dryly. You both laugh, because what isn't a heat wave at this point, she tells you about her neighbor who dug a pit under her house and filled it with cold water to cool her feet. It sounds brilliant and mildly illegal. You consider copying it. On your way back, you stop to splash some water on your neck and under your arms. It evaporates almost instantly, but in that moment, it feels like a kiss from the clouds. You pour a little on your tunic, letting it soak in a trick to fake some evaporative cooling. Medieval hacks. You pass a few kids sitting in a shaded ditch, playing some game involving sticks and pebbles. One looks up and offers you a lopsided smile. You wave, then step over a suspiciously sleeping dog and head home. Back at the cottage, you prop the door open with a rock. The wind, if you can call it that, teases the edge of the curtain. It's not much, but it's enough to feel like hope. And somehow, the afternoon inches forward. Not because it gets easier, just because time, like the flies, buzzing around your head, never stops. You can't really tell whether the sun has gotten higher or if your patience has just gotten shorter, but the heat now feels personal, like it's out to get you. You stand in the doorway of your cottage, arms crossed, weighing your next move. Stay inside with the stench and the stifling air, or wander back into the fields where at least there's space to complain freely. Your stomach rumbles. Right. Lunch. You wander toward the communal cooking area behind the cottage. It's just a ring of stones with an iron tripod above it, positioned a safe distance from the house so that the flames don't turn your thatched roof into a summer bonfire. The fire is dead now. No one wants to stoke a flame when the sun is already doing its best impression of one. You lift a cloth from a clay pot and stare into yesterday's stew. It's a murky broth of barley leeks and what may or may not be rabbit. Probably wasn't rabbit yesterday, but meat transforms in mysterious ways when left out in the heat. You shrug, give it a sniff, and decide to eat around the floating bits. There's no such thing as cold cuts or ice boxes here. Food preservation is a daily gamble. You remember that time your neighbor Elric drank spoiled goat milk and spent 2 days moaning in a ditch. Now he sniffs everything 3 times and carries dried sage in his pocket like a superstition. Historians still debate whether medieval folks understood food, spoilage the way we do today. Some sources say they relied purely on smell and luck. Others suggest rudimentary knowledge of bad humors. Either way, you eat cautiously, sipping the thin soup and chewing a slice of black bread, hard enough to consider it cardio. It's dry tough and somehow manages to taste both burnt and raw. You wash it down with small sips of ale because the water might give you worms, and this was brewed last week, so it's probably safe. That's right, you're day drinking. But not for fun, for hydration. Ale or small beer is weak and slightly sour, brewed quickly and meant for everyday consumption. Even children drink it. The alcohol kills off the nasties that your village water supply nurtures with love and enthusiasm. You glance at the pitcher of milk and debate it. There's a thick layer of cream on top and something shifting beneath the surface. Best not. You quietly slide it behind a clay bowl and pretend you didn't see anything. For a touch of freshness, you gnaw on a cucumber someone traded you this morning. It's the closest thing to relief you've tasted all day. Cool, crunchy, and not actively trying to kill you. You eat it slowly, savoring every watery bite. A bead of juice runs down your chin and evaporates before it reaches your neck. Nearby, your cousin is trying to churn butter in the shade. It's not going well. The milk has separated weirdly, and the heat is speeding up the curdling process. He curses under his breath and threatens to throw the whole thing at a chicken. You remember last summer when someone tried to store cheese in the root cellar, only to open it 2 weeks later and discover what looked like a medieval science experiment, green fuzz, bubbling edges, and a smell that made the pig faint. Storage was tricky in this era. Cool places were rare, and food needed to be eaten, salted, smoked, or dried fast. Fringe trivia. Some folks tried burying food in cool shaded ground lined with herbs and charcoal. It sort of worked if the ants didn't get there first. Lunch is short. You're not here to dine, you're here to not die of hunger. You toss the bread crust to the dog and rinse your mouth with more ale. It doesn't help. Your tongue still feels like it's been rubbed with wool and disappointment. You sit under the tree again, belly half full, eyes heavy. The heat settles on you like a blanket made of bricks. Everyone around you is doing the same thing, slowing down, getting quiet, finding places to disappear from the sun. A few people nap against the fence posts. One old man just lies in a wheelbarrow, eyes closed, hat tilted over his face like the world's sleepiest scarecrow. There's something almost sacred about this pause. The village, for all its noise and motion, understands this truth. If you push too hard during high summer, you don't wake up. You melt, you vanish. Or worse, you have to see the parish healer who thinks putting beetle paste on your forehead solves everything. You lean your head back against the tree and let your mind drift. The sky above you is bright white, buzzing faintly with insects. In the distance, the faint rumble of cartwheels, the creak of a distant windmill, and someone yelling about a cow escaping. Again. You remember stories your grandmother told of people who drank cold well water too quickly and fainted, of saints who could summon clouds with prayer, of farmers who claimed talking to their crops during the hottest part of the day kept them alive. Historians still argue whether peasants were genuinely superstitious or just extremely creative in desperate times. But when it's this hot, you'd believe in cloud-summoning goats if it meant a drop in temperature. A fly lands on your cheek. You swat it lazily. Then another. You sit up grown and make your way to the shed. Time to get back to work before the sun finishes its slow march across the sky. You grab the wooden rake and step into the field again. The barley sways in waves of yellow, the earth dry and cracking underfoot. Every step kicks up dust that clings to your sweat-soaked clothes. You can feel your heartbeat in your ears, but there's a rhythm to it now. The scrape of the rake, the crunch of your boots, the drone of bees. The sun, relentless and smug, watches everything. And you keep moving. Because the only thing worse than this heat is going hungry this winter. You pause mid-rake to rub the sweat out of your eyes. It's not helping much. Your hands are just as grimy as your forehead. The barley field is shimmering, now a golden sea, under a sky so blindingly bright you can barely keep your eyes open. Your back aches, your shirt clings to you like a damp towel, and every time you exhale, it feels like you're breathing into a sack of wool. Welcome to medieval luxury sleeping arrangements. When evening finally limps toward you, it doesn't bring relief, it brings less punishment. The sun still roasts the earth, but now it does it from a slightly less murderous angle. You gather your tools and head home, hoping the cottage will be less of a furnace by the time you reach it. You push open the door and immediately gag. The air inside is heavy with the combined essence of stale bread, boiled turnips, and a not-so-subtle undercurrent of goat. Your mattress, if you can call a bag of straw and despair a mattress, is waiting. You flop onto it, hoping maybe you'll pass out from exhaustion before the fleas notice your back. Let's talk about that mattress. It's a sack, literally. A burlap sack, or perhaps a coarse linen one if you're lucky. It's filled with straw hay if someone's feeling generous, but more often than not, it's old, musty, and lightly infested. You try not to think about what's crawling inside as you shift your weight to the least pointy corner. The problem isn't just the materials, it's everything. There's no airflow in this room. The air is trapped, stewing in itself, thick with humidity and the ghost of dinners past. You press your face against the wall, hoping the wattle and daub will feel cooler than the mattress. It sort of does, but it also smells faintly like fermented cow dung. You grab a rag, your pillow, and stuff it under your head. It's lumpy, smells like onions, and once doubled as a rag for mopping up a broken milk jug. But tonight, it's your neck support, and well, you're grateful. In the corner of the room, a younger sibling whimpers in their sleep. You don't move to comfort them, it's too hot for empathy. Your other sibling shifts beside you, their arm sticking to yours. You groan and scoot away, only to end up pressed against the wall again. Here's a mainstream fact. Medieval families often slept together in one bed, not just for warmth, but because there weren't many other options. Rooms were few, beds were fewer. Privacy was a concept reserved for the nobility or for people who didn't mind sleeping in the barn. Now, in the summer, that closeness becomes a curse. You're essentially a sandwich in a body heat panini press. Someone's snoring, someone's drooling, Someone else is muttering in their sleep about haunted bread ovens, and yet you lie there, eyes wide, waiting for sleep that may never come. The fleas arrive first. You feel the familiar prickles along your ankles and calves. You swat half-heartedly, but you know the score. The straw mattress is a 5-star resort for parasites. You've tried remedies, lavender sprigs, hanging your bedding in the sun, whispering threats into the seams, but nothing works for long. Some folks say that scattering dried herbs into your mattress will repel pests. Others swear by placing garlic under the bed. You've tried both, and now your straw smells like a sickly salad. Historians still argue whether these medicinal additions were effective pest control or just a placebo laced with peasant optimism. You sit up groaning and pace the room. Your hair is damp with sweat. Your shirt clings to your skin. You consider lying on the floor, but the floor is already occupied by the dog, 2 chickens, and a suspiciously large beetle that you're not emotionally prepared to engage with. You shuffle to the doorway and stick your head outside. The night air hits your face like the world's slowest exhale. It's not cool exactly, but it's not the inside of the house. So that's something. Some nights you sleep outside, on a bench, under a tree, in the shadow of a barn. There are risks, of course, bugs, drunk neighbors, the occasional overly affectionate pig, but you do what you have to do. Especially during heat waves like this, when sleep becomes a battle of wills against your own sweat glands. You remember your uncle telling you he once dug a shallow trench and lined it with grass to sleep cool in the summer. You thought he was mad. Now you're reconsidering. You flop back onto your straw sack. It sighs under your weight and releases a small cloud of dust and who knows what into the air. Your nose itches instantly. You sneeze. Someone kicks you in their sleep. The mattress crinkles when you move like a sack of angry paper. You roll from side to side, trying to find the sweet spot. You don't. The fleas are back, the pillow's warm, the air is still. You throw your arm over your eyes and fantasize about winter-cold nights, frost on the windows, fires in the hearth. And then you remember last winter when your boots froze to the floor and you woke up with icicles on your nose. You sigh. At least you're not freezing. Fringe detail. Some peasants made tick beds, which were basically large, overstuffed bags filled with straw or feathers. The richer you were, the more comfortable your sleep, maybe even a woolen blanket. You've seen one once. It looked like heaven. You think about it now and get a little emotional. But even in this uncomfortable, overheated mess, you manage to close your eyes for a moment. The goats outside are quiet. The crickets chirp. Your brother stops muttering. The flea bites dull. And in the haze of heat and exhaustion, you finally begin to drift. You wake up with straw in your mouth, one eye crusted shut, and your legs tangled in someone else's linen shirt. It's still dark. Not cool dark. Not night dark. Just almost morning. The kind of light that makes shadows look extra weird and birds start arguing in the hedges. Your first thought is, I'm still hot. Your second thought is, where did all these bugs come from? You sit up, scratching at your arms, legs, neck, everywhere. The flea bites have bloomed overnight, angry red constellations on your skin. The dog is sprawled across your feet like he owns the place. One of your siblings is drooling on your shoulder, and someone, probably the baby, wet the straw again. You get up, slowly, quietly, and head outside. The moment you step into the pre-dawn air, it hits you cold. Not actual cold, not breath-fogging cold, but cooler than it's been in hours. The kind of air that brushes your skin and almost tricks you into thinking the day might be tolerable. You sit on the wooden bench by the door. It's damp with dew, but blessedly smooth. You breathe, in and out. No smoke, no stew, just earth and leaves and animal funk. You're grateful. Genuinely, this hour is sacred. Work hasn't started, people are mostly asleep, and you, just for this moment, are alone. You can hear the low moo of a cow, the shuffle of chickens in the coop, and the distant clatter of hooves on the dirt road. Someone's up early. But soon, this quiet will be broken by the sound of the village coming alive. The clang of iron tools, the shouting of children, the creak of water buckets swinging on shoulders. Because work must start before the sun gets high enough to turn the fields into ovens. That's your reality. Dawn means labor, not because it's romantic or because you love the sunrise, but because it's survival. If you don't weed your plot early, you risk passing out in the dirt before noon. If you don't feed the animals now, they'll scream about it all day. If you don't fetch water soon, the well line will stretch halfway to the manor house. You rub your eyes and stand up. There's no such thing as a slow morning. You grab the yoke, 2 buckets balanced on either end, and make your way toward the well. The road is dry, packed with footprints, goat tracks, and a few weird squiggly lines that might be snakes or a drunk chicken. You walk carefully, eyes half open, listening to the familiar creak of wood on your shoulders and the gentle slosh of yesterday's buckets. You're not the first one here. Of course not. The widow Catherine is already at the well, ladling water into her own buckets like she's been awake since the beginning of time. She nods at you, says nothing, just gestures toward the next spot in line. You wait your turn, swatting flies, tracing circles in the dust with your toe. You glance around. A few others join the line, yawning and scratching and rubbing their faces. The village is waking up. Finally, it's your turn. You lower the bucket, hear it splash, then grunt as you hold it up. The rope bites into your palms, but the sound of fresh water is the closest thing to music you've heard in weeks. You fill your bucket slop a little over your feet and start the slow walk back home. The sun is creeping over the horizon now, golden and smug. You can feel it beginning to nudge the heat back into the world, warming the rooftops, peeling the dew off the leaves. You pick up your pace. Back at the cottage, everyone's starting to stir. Your mother's already fussing with the fire pit, trying to coax a spark, without accidentally boiling the entire room. Your brother's chasing the dog, who's stolen his only decent sock. Your sister is brushing straw out of her hair like she's being attacked. You set the buckets down and splash your face. The cold water makes you gasp. It runs down your chest and back, soaking into your shirt. And for 5 glorious seconds, you're alive. Now it's time to get dressed. Medieval peasant fashion doesn't offer much in the way of climate control. You throw on your linen tunic. It's the least damp of the 2 you own, and cinch it with a rope. Underneath, nothing. Nobody's got time for layers when the air feels like soup. Your feet go into leather turn shoes, already cracked and stiff from the sun. You bend them by hand until they feel vaguely walkable. Then comes the part you hate, the outer layer. A wool overdress or jerkin. It's not optional. The sun may be brutal, but the church is worse. Show too much skin, and you'll get a lecture about modesty sin and the dangers of ankles. So you sweat, and you suffer. But here's the weird thing. Some say wearing more clothes actually helps in the heat, keeps the sun off your skin, slows dehydration. Historians still argue about it. Was it a form of protection? Was it just a cultural norm? Was everyone just very committed to being itchy? No one knows. You pull your hat down low over your face and step into the day. By now, The sun is fully up, and the air has flipped from gentle caress to wet slap. Chickens cluck indignantly as you walk past, and the goats bleat like they've been personally wronged by the humidity. You head to the garden plot first. Weeding, always weeding. The plants are limp thirsty and judging you. You get down on your knees and start yanking. The soil is dry on top, but when you dig a little, you hit coolness. For a moment, you let your hands rest there, buried in the dirt, just to feel something close to comfort. It's not much, but it's honest. As you work, you think about all the little tricks people try to stay cool. Wet rags on the neck, standing barefoot on stone floors, fanning yourself with tree bark, sitting in church longer than necessary just because it's shaded. That last one is especially popular, nothing like divine forgiveness and thick stone walls. You pause to stretch your back. The sun's climbing higher. Soon it'll be too hot to be out here at all. You keep going, because weeds don't care that you're tired, because water needs hauling, because the barley won't harvest itself, because this is your life. And if you don't work now, you don't eat later. You know you should stop soon. The sun is nearly overhead. Your mouth tastes like old bark, and your arms feel like wet laundry draped over a fence post. But there are still weeds everywhere, grinning, smug little invaders. You yank another one, its roots dangling like stringy legs, and toss it into the compost pile. You glance at the sky, squinting. That deep, merciless blue again. Not a single cloud. The kind of sky that feels like a dare. You lose this round. You rise to your feet, joints cracking, and wipe your face with the hem of your tunic. The fabric is soaked. It's like trying to mop your face with a damp sheep. Time for a break. You shuffle back toward the cottage, passing the animal pens on the way. The pigs have turned their water trough into a mud pit again. They're lying in it, snorting happily like they're on some luxurious spa retreat. You glare at them. Lucky brutes, you go for your own version of hydration. The bucket you filled this morning is sitting in the shade, and it's not warm. Let's call it tepid, with a hint of mystery. You lift the ladle, really just a hollowed gourd, and drink deeply. The water is gritty, possibly a bug floating. You don't care. Then you move to your next best friend, ale. Stored in a sealed clay jug, the small beer is sour, low in alcohol, and shockingly safe compared to whatever's in that stream. You gulp half a cup, belch like a dragon, and feel your stomach settle. It's hydration, nutrition, and a mild attitude adjustment all in one. Fact, peasants didn't drink ale to get drunk, they drank it to survive. Brewing boiled the water, and even the weakest brew killed enough bacteria to make it safer than the well. Children drank it, pregnant women drank it, you drink it. Everyone was on a very low-key daily buzz just to keep the plague at bay. You sit under the eaves holding the cup, trying not to think about how much more of the day is left. From inside the cottage, someone hands you a bowl. It's oat gruel again. A thin, beige porridge that jiggles when the wind hits it. You eat because you need to, not because you're hungry. It's filling in that I might not collapse today kind of way. Somewhere nearby, your cousin is chasing a goose. The goose is winning. It honks triumphantly as it escapes into the garden, flapping and flinging feathers everywhere. You laugh, and it feels strange. Joy in this weather. Bold choice. You lean back against the outer wall of your cottage, eyes half closed, and let yourself just be. There's something hypnotic about the way the flies buzz. Something meditative, about the distant rhythm of a blacksmith's hammer. If you weren't so sticky, so itchy, and so deeply aware of the sweat pooling in your boots, you might call this peaceful. But even peace can't distract you from what's next. Chores. You groan and stand, stretching your back like an old door hinge. The animals need tending. The firewood pile has to be sorted. The goat has somehow tangled herself in the fence again. And worst of all, someone has to skim the milk. You enter the small shed beside the cottage where the dairy tools live. It smells like, well, like milk. Warm milk. The kind that's thinking about going sour but hasn't fully committed yet. You open a clay jug and see the cream has risen to the top. Time to skim it. You use a wide, flat spoon and do your best to not disrupt the delicate balance of still edible and will ruin your week. The cream goes into a smaller pot, which will either become butter or, if the weather wins, a new species of mold. Medieval milk was no joke. It went bad quickly, even in the shade. So people got creative. Sour it into cheese, boil it into curds, churn it until your arms fall off. Anything to keep it useful for a few more hours. You've heard stories of people burying jugs in the ground to keep them cool. Some say it worked. Others say it just attracted every rodent for miles. You bring the cream back into the house. Your mother eyes it, sniffs it, shrugs. It's a win. You start to prep for the next meal, though no one's really hungry. In this heat, food becomes more of a task than a pleasure. A bit of bread, maybe some beans, a few pickled onions. If you're lucky, someone brings back a rabbit. If not, you chew the bread slower and pretend. You grab another drink. This time, it's water with herbs steeped in it, mint and wild fennel. Someone swore it cool the blood. You don't know if it works, but it tastes better than plain water and hasn't given you intestinal distress yet, so you call it a success. Here's a fringe practice. Some peasants rubbed vinegar on their skin as a cooling tactic, or stuck slices of onion under their armpits. You tried it once. The vinegar stung. The onion made you cry. The smell, unforgettable, and not in a good way. But now it's time for the worst task of the day: latrines. Your household has a simple pit dug a few yards behind the house, covered with planks. Nothing fancy. When it gets full, you dig a new one. You carry a jug of water for rinsing, a rag for wiping, and a small stick for stirring, because someone said it helps with airflow. You try not to think about it too much. You squat, do your business, rinse, and flee the scene. It's not pleasant. It never will be. But it's life. You wash your hands in the stream afterward, just in case. No soap, but friction, and a handful of gravel will do in a pinch. You remember when someone tried making lye soap last summer and ended up bleaching half their clothes. You still have a tunic with pink blotches. You return to your seat under the tree, looking out over the dry fields. The sun is starting to lower, but not enough. It still leers at you, daring you to keep working. You close your eyes. Just 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes without moving, sweating, scratching, or worrying. Just 5 minutes before you have to stand up again and keep being a medieval human oven with chores. Your 5 minutes pass in a blink. Or maybe they stretch into a tiny lifetime. Either way, when you open your eyes again, your legs are stiff. Your tunic is somehow wetter than before, and the sun is lower but still mean. You rise with a groan that sounds like it belongs to a much older version of you. Stretch your arms above your head and feel your back pop like dry thatch. It's time to get back to work. Again. The chores don't pause for the heat. They don't care if you're tired or sunburned or just a little emotionally wilted. So you grab your hoe, the wooden rake, and a jug of what you hope is still drinkable ale, and make your way toward the field. This is the part of the day where your brain goes a little fuzzy. Not from age, not from joy, just overexposure. The heat settles on you like an old woolen cloak that someone soaked in soup. Every step stirs up more dust. You're not walking, you're trudging. You pass others on their own heat-slowed missions. A girl dragging a bucket of weeds. An old man shoeing a donkey that keeps trying to nap in the road. Two brothers bickering over whose turn it is to fetch more water. No one's moving fast. It's not laziness, it's tactics. The sun has reached that late afternoon angle where it feels more focused, like a spotlight. You avoid direct rays by sticking close to hedgerows' walls, even large livestock. Anything that throws a decent shadow. You find your spot in the field and begin the afternoon's rhythm swing, scrape, drag, swat. The sweat starts immediately soaking through the linen, pooling behind your knees, trickling down your spine. You've long given up trying to stay dry. The goal now is just not to collapse. Your hat floppy, sun-bleached, and barely holding together shields your eyes enough to keep going. You tie it tighter with a frayed string and keep your head low. The sun is the enemy, but it's also your boss. You do what it tells you. Around you, the plants are struggling too. Leaves, wilt, stalks sag. The barley's gone brittle, the beans are curling, and the onions look like they're plotting their escape. The soil under your feet is cracked and thirsty. You know what that means. Tomorrow's water chores will be even worse. You sigh and rake. You remember hearing once that some people in far-off lands dig trenches to capture rain or build special jars that sweat out cool water from the air. You wonder if they work. You wonder if anyone here has the time or energy to try. Historians still argue whether peasant communities innovated these kinds of cooling strategies or simply relied on tradition. Some say a few enterprising souls developed clever irrigation or shade techniques. Others argue there was little opportunity to experiment when mere survival took every waking moment. You think both are true. You know someone who buried pots in the shade to keep stew cool, and another who swears by a cooling hat made of wet moss. You tried it once. The moss slid into your eyes and a beetle bit your forehead. After another hour in the field, you need a break. You toss the rake into a bush, wipe your hands on your shirt, and duck into the shadow of a crumbling stone wall. Once, this was part of a Roman outpost, or so the old men claim. Now, it's your resting spot. You slide down until you're sitting on your haunches legs, stretched in front, chest heaving. You sip from the jug. It's warmer now and tastes a bit like wet wood. Still, it's liquid. It goes down rough and sits in your stomach like a small rock. You're joined by a boy, maybe 10, carrying a basket of something leafy. He flops beside you and offers a grimy handful. Sorrel, he mumbles, still cool inside. You chew a few leaves. Sharp, lemony, strangely refreshing. You nod. Good find. He nods back, then plops the rest into his basket and runs off to annoy a goat. You sit for a while longer, letting the shade soothe your skin. The air is still hot, but now it moves just a little. A teasing breeze slips past your ear and disappears. You want to chase it down and demand answers. Instead, you stand again. You pass the barn on your way back and peek inside. The hayloft is glowing with dust motes, the roof shimmering with heat. A cow, lowing softly, lies in the corner, eyes half closed, chewing slowly. You envy her. There was a time when you slept in this barn during a particularly cruel summer. The animal's presence added heat, sure, but the thick walls and higher ceiling made it more bearable than the house. You remember curling into the hay with a blanket under your head and waking to birdsong instead of snoring siblings. You consider doing it again tonight. Back at the cottage, you see your mother fanning the fire. The coals are glowing. She's trying to make a quick stew before the heat becomes unbearable again. You offer to help, mostly to stay near the flame while it's still manageable. You chop leeks, peel turnips, and drop them into the pot, all the while swatting away flies who think they have VIP tickets to the dinner show. And speaking of flies, they're everywhere. Clustering on door frames, hovering over pots, settling on anything even vaguely edible. One lands on your lip and you nearly fall over trying to swat it. You wipe your hands and step outside again, leaning on the door frame. The sun is still out, but now just barely. It's lowered enough to cast long shadows. The village is stretching out again, as if waking from a slow, shared nap. People appear in doorways. Children run barefoot. A dog barks at its own tail, then loses interest. You know it's not over yet. Evening chores await. Tools to store, chickens to herd, clothes to wring out and hang in the breeze. But you also know the worst part is behind you. The sun is backing off. The air is softening. And if you're lucky, if there'll be a breeze tonight, strong enough to make sleep feel possible. You cross your arms, look to the horizon, and smirk. You made it through the day, again. The sun dips behind the low hills in the distance, casting the whole village in a warm orange glow. It looks pretty, almost magical if you squint. But you're not fooled. You know this light. This is the part of the day that tricks you into thinking things are about to get better. Spoiler, they're not. Not yet. You gather up the tools you left strewn around the yard, the rake, the hoe, the battered water jug you stepped on earlier, and pretended not to notice. Everything has to go back in the shed. Not because you're organized, but because if you don't, someone will trip over it in the dark and you'll be blamed. The shed is even hotter than the house, which feels like a personal insult. You open the door, step inside, and immediately question your life choices. It smells like boiled dust and moldy leather. The walls sweat. You sweat. The tools sweat. You drop everything, slam the door, and back out, gasping like you just wrestled a bear made of steam. Outside again, the air feels almost pleasant. The sharp bite of sun is gone, replaced by a gentler warmth, like the village has finally exhaled after holding its breath all day. You stand there for a moment, breathing with it. Then comes the smoke. You catch it on the breeze, first wood smoke tinged with herbs and onion. The evening cook fires are starting. You glance across the village and see thin plumes rising from chimneys and backyard pits. Everyone is making their meal at once, capitalizing on the cooler hour before full dark sets in. You head back to your own fire pit, where your mother is poking at the bubbling stew. She offers you a taste. You lean in, careful not to scald your tongue, and sip a spoonful. It's edible, a thin broth with a few wilted greens and something chewy that could be meat or a particularly resilient mushroom. Either way, it's hot food. You're not complaining. You help serve the rest of the family, passing out wooden bowls and crusts of bread. The bread is yesterday's, hard enough to chip a tooth, but softened slightly in the stew. Everyone eats in silence, broken only by the occasional slurp or the scraping of spoon on wood. The fire crackles. The air shifts. For the first time all day, it feels like the world might calm down. Until someone says it, feels like a storm's coming. And just like that, the mood shifts. You glance at the horizon. The sky is still mostly clear, but there's a thick, grey smudge rolling in from the east. Low, slow, and deliberate. You feel it before you hear it, the subtle pressure change in the air, the prickling at the back of your neck. Storms in summer are unpredictable guests. They might cool things off or flood your garden, blow your roof clean off, and leave your chickens emotionally shattered. Historians still debate how peasants interpreted summer storms. Some believed they were divine punishment. Others saw them as blessings from saints or signs from angry ancestors. You mostly just hope it doesn't ruin your dinner. You finish eating quickly and help cover the stew pot, just in case. Then it's time to move fast tools under cover animals, herded inside and laundry half dry, brought down from the line and slung over furniture. The wind picks up, leaves rustle. A door bangs shut somewhere and a child shrieks, more from excitement than fear. You grab a bundle of herbs from under the eaves and hang them above the doorframe. A mix of rue sage and maybe something someone swore keeps lightning away. You don't believe in it, not really, but tonight it feels worth doing. The animals sense the change too. The goats get twitchy, the pigs snort in confusion, and the dog, usually half asleep, paces the yard like he's suddenly become sheriff. Then, the first boom. Not right overhead. Distant, but definite. You count 1, 2, 3 before the flash follows. Still far enough to relax, close enough to keep moving. You and your family huddle in the cottage, sitting on stools or cross-legged on the floor, waiting. The air inside is stifling, and now it holds the extra tension of storm waiting. Every creak of the roof feels like a test of your courage. Then rain. At first, just a patter on the thatch, then a proper drum roll, then a full-blown roar. You sigh. It's awful, and also wonderful. The temperature drops by a few blessed degrees. The air clears. You press your face against the shutter and feel droplets sneak through the gaps. Cool, sharp, glorious. Everyone moves a little closer to the door, not too close, but close enough to taste the change. It's a communal moment, shared across the village. You can hear laughter in the distance, shouts of, "Bring it on," and the occasional clang of something metal blowing over. Someone's roof will need fixing tomorrow. You lie back on the mattress arms behind your head and just listen. Rain on thatch, wind through the cracks. Your brother, whispering ghost stories he only tells during storms. The goat making weird noises in her corner. Probably jealous she's not under a tree. You remember hearing once that monks used to build stone water channels to cool their cells during summer. You imagine how that would feel, cold water flowing beside your bed, whispering as you sleep. You sigh. That would be nice. You close your eyes. The storm will pass soon. The heat will return. But for this moment, wrapped in a blanket of thunder and wet wind, you feel something close to content. Not cool, not comfortable, but closer. By the time the storm fades, the cottage smells like wet wood mud and the slightly sour tang of damp straw. The kind of scent that says, "Congratulations, you survived the weather, but now everything you own is mildly soggy." You're lying on your side, one cheek pressed to the least prickly part of the mattress, blinking slowly at the flickering flame of the tallow candle. It's burning low, just enough light to cast long shadows up the walls and across the low rafters. You watch a moth flutter too close, singe its wing, and spiral downward like a leaf on fire. The air has changed. It's not cold, but it's not choking you anymore. That alone feels like a gift. After the storm, the temperature always drops just enough to trick you into thinking sleep will come easily. It won't. You shift, trying to find a dry patch in the straw. No such luck. Everything's a little damp now, Your shirt, your hair, the corners of the bedding where your sister's feet have somehow migrated again. You nudge her back to her side with all the tenderness of a foot shove. Your father mutters something in his sleep, probably a complaint about goats' taxes or both, and rolls over, sending the straw crackling. Your mother sighs and pulls the blanket tighter around herself. She's the only one who still thinks a blanket is necessary in June. You lie there listening. The rain has dwindled to the occasional drip from the roof. A breeze flutters through the cracked shutter, stirring the candle flame and bringing in the scent of wet earth and cow. You let it wash over you. Your body aches from the day's work. Your hands are blistered, your knees raw from the garden, and your neck feels like it's spent the day arguing with the sun and losing. But still you're here. You didn't faint. You didn't catch fire. You didn't fall into the pig pen. Victory. You sit up quietly and slip outside. The ground is wet and cool beneath your bare feet. Puddles reflect the low crescent moon, broken now and then by the ripple of frogs or the gentle landing of a beetle trying to recalibrate its life. You make your way to the edge of the yard near the old fence, where the ground is firmer and the air feels lighter. You sit on an overturned bucket and just breathe. Around the village, the storm has done its work. The dust has settled. The leaves glisten. A few windows glow with candlelight. Somewhere, someone is softly singing an old tune, half lullaby, half prayer. It blends with the night like it's always belonged there. You spot a neighbor wandering past, shirt untucked, hair plastered to his forehead. He gives you a nod, holds up a jug, and mouths, "Too hot to sleep." You nod back. He keeps walking. These moments are unspoken rituals. You and every other villager know the truth. Summer nights don't end when the sun goes down. They linger. You don't sleep, you just endure. And if you're lucky, maybe the darkness lets you feel human again. You scratch at your arm, then your ankle, then give up and scratch everything at once. The mosquitoes are out in force tonight, newly emboldened by the rain. You slap one on your neck and mutter a curse that would have gotten you a scolding in church. Still, you stay out a little longer. It's worth it for the air alone. It's got that rare softness, like the world is trying to apologize for how it treated you all day. You think about Saint Swithin, the one who supposedly controls the weather. You once heard that if it rains on his feast day, it'll rain for the next 40 days. You're not sure if today is that day. You don't care. You just hope tomorrow's tolerable. Historians still debate how deeply peasants tied their lives to saint seasons and weather omens. Some say it was central to everything. Others argue that it was just a coping mechanism when crops failed and sweat rolled down your spine like guilt. You stand up and stretch arms high back, popping again. You pause to look up at the sky. The stars are back. They blink lazily above you, undisturbed by earthly nonsense like harvest quotas and fleas. You trace a few with your finger. That one looks like a crossbow, that one's probably a fish. You're not great with constellations, but you like pretending. You walk back toward the cottage slowly, each step squelching slightly in the mud. The goat snorts at you from under the eaves, eyeing you like she knows all your secrets. You ignore her and step inside. Everyone else is asleep or faking it. You tiptoe around the bodies, find your spot in the straw, and lower yourself down carefully. Damp again, of course, but not boiling. You roll onto your side, facing the shutter. The breeze flutters once more, brushing your face like a tired lullaby. You close your eyes, and for the first time all day, you feel your body begin to give in. Not from heat, not from hunger, not from the demands of survival, but from rest. It's not sleep. Not yet. but it's something close. You drift off for a bit, not the deep, blissful sleep you imagine lords get under feather quilts, but the light, twitchy, kind peasants know all too well. The kind where every breeze feels like a threat, and every creak could mean the roof's giving up. Still, it counts. But then the goat sneezes, loudly, and right next to your ear. You jolt awake, heart pounding, and instinctively swat at the air like it might help. It doesn't. Your hand connects with a clump of straw and your sister's elbow, which earns you a sleepy groan and a half-hearted kick. The goat bleats once, unapologetically, and curls up again on her usual patch of flooring near the hearth. So that's how it is tonight. You sit up, brushing stray bits of hay from your neck and shoulders. Your tunic is damp in weird places and stuck to your side like a leaf in a rain gutter. You feel like a soggy biscuit. The air hasn't turned warm again, not yet, but it's creeping that way, as if the heat, while technically absent, has sent word that it'll be returning soon. You get up again, and this time head out the back door. The wooden latch clicks softly, and the door swings open on its whining hinge. Outside, the village is still asleep, but restlessly. You can see a few other figures like yourself, moving shadows, leaning in doorways, or pacing slowly, too hot or too irritated to rest. It's the middle of the night, but it doesn't feel like peace. It feels like waiting. You cross the yard, barefoot, stepping carefully through puddles and patches of churned mud left by the storm. The smell is still fresh, wet earth, damp wool, a hint of smoke. You like it better than the sour mix inside the cottage. You head toward the shed, not for tools, but for the ladder. You're going up. The roof of the cottage is steep and patchy, but if you climb the low fence beside the lean-to, use the old rain barrel as a step, and grab the right rafter, you can pull yourself up. You've done it before. You know which spots hold, and which ones will send you straight into the pig pen with a sprained ankle and a bruised ego. You haul yourself up, careful not to snap any thatch, and perch at the peak of the roof legs dangling over one side. From here, the village looks different. Quiet and small, its sounds muffled by the cooling night. A dog barks once and is shushed by someone's sleepy curse. A shutter bangs loose on a distant house. An owl hoots nearby, low and thoughtful, like it's watching you. You lie back carefully on the thatch, using your arms as a pillow. The straw pokes through your shirt, but the breeze that makes it worth it. Up here, the air moves. It's gentle and rare, like someone exhaling right next to your ear without meaning to. You close your eyes and let it sweep over you. From this height, you feel just a little removed from the weight of the day. The chores, the dirt, the stew, the itchy mattress, the goat. All of it softens under the stars. And there are stars more than you ever bother counting. They stretch from one side of the sky to the other, tangled in shapes you can never quite name, but always recognize. That crooked line, the plow. That cluster of dots, your uncle swore it looked like a donkey, but only after 3 mugs of ale. The night hums gently. No crickets yet, still too damp, but you can hear the grass rustling, the drip of water from the eaves, the distant rush of a stream swollen from the rain. You take a long, slow breath and let your thoughts wander. You think of the winter to come. It'll be cold, yes, but at least it won't be this hot. You'll have a fire again, layers to bundle in, reasons to stay inside and not sweat through your bedding. But then again, winter brings its own kind of misery, frozen toes, cracking hands, icy chamber pots. You remember what old Bertram said once? There's 2 seasons in this life, sweatin' and shiverin', and neither one loves you. True enough. Still right now, in this small pocket of night, when the heat has loosened its grip, you feel a kind of calm. that's rare and precious. You wish you could bottle it, this breeze, this quiet, this illusion of peace. Here's something quirky. Some folks believed that sleeping outdoors under the stars allowed spirits to whisper dreams into your ears. Others swore it was dangerous, that night air brought illness, that ghosts lingered in the fields, that dreams were where demons practiced speeches. You've had dreams under this sky. Some beautiful, some strange. You don't question their origins too much. Historians still argue about the importance of dreams in peasant life. Were they merely distractions, or taken as genuine omens? You know that after a long day in the sun, with a belly half full and a mind rattled by chores, dreams are often the only place where you get answers, even if they don't make sense. You close your eyes again. You hear the flutter of a bat, the soft crackle of someone's late-night fire being doused, a snore rising from the next rooftop over. Maybe you're not the only one who climbed up tonight. Lying here with the stars above and the warm thatch below, you almost believe this life could be easy. Not every day, not most days, but sometimes. Sometimes there are small moments where nothing hurts, nothing burns, nothing bites, and that's enough. You breathe and you wait, because in a few hours the sky will brighten again, the sun will rise, the heat will return. But for now, you are still. You're not sure how long you lie there. Could be minutes, could be an hour. Time doesn't behave properly at night, not when the air is calm, the stars are blinking politely above you, and the sounds of the village shrink into soft, background hums. But eventually, the breeze shifts. Not in a bad way, just in the kind of way that reminds you the world hasn't stopped spinning. You sit up slowly, the thatch crackling beneath you, and stretch your arms skyward. Your shirt sticks to your back. You peel it away, wince slightly and sigh. Below, the village stirs. A rooster crows, early, confused, or just rude. You hear the distant creak of a cartwheel, the rhythmic clatter of someone grinding grain, the hollow knock of a wooden spoon against a pot. Dawn's not far now. You slide down carefully, the old rain barrel catching your weight like it always does, and hop down into the mud with a soft squelch. You don't bother wiping your feet. No point. They'll be filthy again in 5 steps. Inside the cottage, it's still dim. The candles burned out. Your mother is already up poking at the coals in the hearth. She glances at you and raises an eyebrow, clearly clocking your damp shirt twigs in your hair and the unmistakable expression of someone who's had a moment with the cosmos. Couldn't sleep, you murmur. She doesn't answer, just grunts and hands you a turnip to peel. So begins another day. But this time, it starts slower. The air miraculously is not oppressive. The storm broke the heat's back, for now. The breeze slips through the shutter cracks like a secret. Your shirt doesn't cling immediately. Your lungs don't feel like they're inhaling boiled cabbage. You dare to hope this might actually be a good day. It won't last. It never does. But right now, it's enough. You and your mother prepare breakfast. Gruel, of course. What else? But it's warm, not scalding. The bread's still hard. At least smells like food this time. You eat in silence, watching a line of ants make their way across the table. Even they seem sluggish. Once everyone is awake and fed, the household disperses. Your younger brother is tasked with gathering kindling, your father heads to the fields, and you get the laundry. You sigh. Washing clothes in the Middle Ages is an ordeal. First there's the water, hauling it from the stream heavy and sloshing in buckets that bite into your hands. Then there's the soap, or lack thereof. Sometimes it's ashes, mixed with lye. Sometimes crushed herbs. Sometimes just hot water and wishful thinking. You gather the baskets, grab a scrubbing board, and head toward the stream. The sun has barely risen, but it's already painting the tops of the trees in gold. Birds chirp, like they're competing for applause. The air is fresh. You smile. At the stream, you roll up your sleeves and wade in, ankle deep. The water is cool, flowing quickly from last night's rain. And for a moment, you stand still just to enjoy it. Your toes sink into the mud. Tiny fish dart around your feet. You exhale. Then the scrubbing starts. You slap the tunics against the rock with practiced rhythm. Scrub, twist, slap. The dirt lifts slowly, reluctantly. You dunk the cloth again, using your fingers to dig into the seams where grime hides, like it's got a lease. It's hard work, but it's familiar. You glance upstream and see another washerwoman waving to you. She's got a baby strapped to her back and a scowl on her face, probably from the laundry or maybe just the weight of another day. You nod, sharing in the mutual suffering. Fact, laundry was one of the most physically demanding and time-consuming chores in a medieval household. It took hours, involved caustic substances, and destroyed more fabric than it cleaned. But it had to be done especially when everything smelled like goat and stew. You hang the clean clothes on nearby bushes, hoping the breeze keeps them from smelling worse than when you started. You splash your arms and face, wipe the sweat from your eyes, and carry the now empty basket back home. By the time you return, the sun is fully up, but not angry. Yet. Your siblings are back from their errands, their hands full of sticks, and their feet caked in mud. Your father is already shouting from the fields something about geese in the barley. You hear your name. You pretend not to. You duck into the shed, pretending to look for something important, and instead just sit on an overturned bucket forehead, pressed to your knees. These are the moments you ration for yourself, little pieces of nothing. They help. You hear the neighbor kids playing near the fence. Someone's invented a new game involving rocks, shouting, and probably eventual blood. You smile. Childhood, even in a medieval heat wave, finds a way. You step outside, finally ready to face the day's tasks, and spot a curious scene. Two women crouched in the alley between cottages, smearing something green and foul-smelling on their arms. You edge closer. It's Nettle, and Mint One whispers, noticing your look. Keeps the sweat away. The other nods smugly, and the flies, too, a charm from the healer. You raise an eyebrow, but say nothing. You file it away under desperate measures, possibly witchcraft. Maybe you'll try it tomorrow. Historians still argue whether these folk remedies were medicinal or symbolic, whether they cooled the body or simply offered comfort. Either way, you know that when it's hot enough to cook an egg on your neighbor's forehead, even superstition gets a fair trial. You grab a jug of weak ale and sit on the edge of the trough, sipping slowly. Today won't be easy. No day is. But there's a breeze. The clothes are clean. Your shirt doesn't feel like it's trying to kill you, and the goat hasn't sneezed on you since sunrise. That's a win. By mid-morning, the heat returns, but slower this time, like it's forgotten something and is retracing its steps. The breeze lingers a little longer. The sun peeks through the trees instead of bludgeoning them. You're not sure if the weather is being kind or just catching its breath. You carry a bundle of herbs to the drying rack behind the shed. Sage, lavender, and something your aunt insists is good for warding off hot spirits. You hang them in the sun, careful not to bunch them too tightly. If they mold, your mother will blame the goat, but everyone knows it'll be your fault. You take a moment to breathe in, the scent earthy, sharp, oddly calming. For a fleeting second, it makes you feel like someone in a tapestry, some idealized medieval figure, lounging in a garden, untouched by bugs, mud, or back pain. Then a mosquito lands on your neck and the fantasy dies. Still, you've survived worse mornings. You grab the broom or a bundle of tied twigs than an actual cleaning tool and begin sweeping the yard. Not because it needs it, but because sometimes doing something repetitive is the only thing that keeps your thoughts from sticking to the sweat on your back. While you work, your neighbors pass by. Some nod, some wave. Others are too hot or too busy to do either. One woman carries a bucket full of what looks like cooked weeds. "Salad," she says proudly. You smile and nod, wondering what kind of person looks at a bucket of boiled greenery and calls it a treat. But that's life here. You celebrate the little victories. A breeze, a bowl of food that didn't turn, a fire that lights on the first try. And if you're lucky, a mid-afternoon nap. Speaking of which, after you finish sweeping, you make your way to the patch of shade under the old oak at the back of the plot. You've cleared it out over the years. No rocks, no roots, just dry dirt, and a blanket that smells like thyme and sun. It's your sanctuary. You lie down the earth warm but not burning. You close your eyes, not to sleep exactly, but to stop existing for a minute. This is a tradition, a known thing. Even your Lord naps during the heat of the day. If he can, so can you. You slow your breathing. You feel your body ease bit by bit into the soil. Your fingertips twitch in the dust. A fly lands on your lip, and you gently wave it off, too lazy to kill it. Above, the oak leaves dance gently in the wind. You think of all the people before you who lay here, all the summers, all the sweat, all the silent oaths whispered into the soil, promising that one day, they'd leave this field and do something bigger. But you know better. You'll probably be here tomorrow, and the day after that. Because someone has to weed the garden. Someone has to bring water to the fire. Someone has to keep the goat from eating the laundry. Historians still debate whether peasants dreamed of rising above their station, or whether they found meaning in the rhythm of repetition. Some argue ambition was rare in a world so tightly bound to land and labor. Others point to folktales and runaway records and whispered stories told beside fires. You don't have an answer. You just know that in this moment, with the dust under your fingernails and the sun finally behaving, you are at peace. Until you're not. A voice breaks the stillness. They're coming back from market. You sit up quickly, startled. The sun stabs your eyes, and you squint through the branches. Sure enough, in the distance, you spot the small procession winding down the main road. A few ox carts, people on foot, the usual clatter and shuffle of returning villagers who've been to the big market square in town. You stand and brush the dirt from your tunic, suddenly alert. Market returns are exciting, even if you weren't there. Sometimes they bring news, or fresh goods, or if fortune smiles, a new piece of clothing from the tailors in the next village over. You jog over to meet them, weaving between houses and around puddles still left from the storm. The carts roll in, slowly weighed down by sacks of flour, baskets of apples, bolts of coarse cloth, and what looks like a new iron kettle gleaming in the sun. Children run up, tugging at sleeves and pointing at sweets. The adults are more restrained, but only barely. You help unload, not because anyone asked you to, but because it means getting first look at whatever came back. You lift a wrapped bundle and peer beneath the cloth, onions, turnips, and something strange. Long white roots with purple tops. One of the older women sees your confusion and grins. Parsnips, she says. Very fashionable right now. You nod slowly, pretending to care deeply about root vegetable trends. As the goods are sorted and handed off, people gather to trade news. Bandits on the South Road. A merchant passed through with singing monkeys. Someone saw lightning strike the bishop's tree. You take it all in. Not because you believe everything, but because stories make the heat go faster. They give shape to the days. A reason to listen, a reason to laugh. And then something small but wonderful. A piece of linen. Plain, undyed, slightly rough. But it's yours. Your uncle who made the trip presses it into your hands. Thought you could use it. Your shirt's got more holes than thread. You stare at it like it's gold. Linen is expensive. Not rare, but not every day either. You fold it carefully, almost reverently, and smile. This evening, you'll soak it in water, wring it out, and wear it over your shoulders. Let the breeze turn it cool. Let the cool turn into calm. And maybe, just maybe tonight, you'll sleep a little easier. You carry the linen like a prize held close against your chest as you make your way back home. It's not large, just enough for a simple shirt or maybe a cloth for your head, but in a world where anything is rare, it feels like treasure. The sun is beginning its slow descent, now spilling gold over the village in long, lazy streaks. The roofs glow. The mud turns soft and reddish. Shadows stretch thin and tired, just like everyone else. You duck into the cottage and lay the linen on the bed, carefully, almost ceremoniously. Then you fetch a bowl of water, soak the cloth, and drape it over your neck and shoulders. The effect is instant. The wet fabric draws heat from your skin, cooling your spine and chasing the prickly sweat from behind your knees. You close your eyes and tilt your head back. If this isn't magic, it's the closest thing you'll ever know. You step back outside and sit on the threshold, feeling half human again. Your little sister joins you, her hands sticky with berry juice, and plops down without asking. She leans her head against your arm. You don't mind. She's warm, but not in the way the sun is. She's warm like firelight on a winter night, comfort, not burden. Together, you watch the rest of the village settle into its evening rhythm. Chickens are rounded up, goats are scolded. Someone beats a rug against the side of a barn, releasing a cloud of dust that glows in the slanted light like fairy smoke. Dinner smells drift from doorways, onion stew, fresh bread, even something that might be pork. Someone got lucky. You're not even jealous, just hungry. Your mother calls you in, and you eat quietly, passing bowls and pieces of bread, wiping your hands on your tunic, sipping small beer. The meal is simple but good, and as the sky dims, outside, the inside of the cottage glows with candlelight and the low murmurs of shared stories. Afterward, you help wash the bowls in a basin of tepid water, then step outside again to watch the last of the daylight fade. The breeze is stronger now. It rustles through the trees, flips a loose shutter on the neighbor's house, and lifts the ends of your damp linen scarf like a flag. You close your eyes and let it pass over you, bringing with it the scent of nightfall, wood smoke, crushed grass, rain-washed soil. The villagers begin to vanish indoors one by one, like stars winking out. You linger a bit longer, soaking in the rare coolness. Your arms are scratched from thistles, your legs are tired, your back is a map of sore muscles and bent effort, but your heart, quiet. And that's something. You go inside and lie down on the straw mattress, the fresh linen now wrapped around your chest. It's already drying, but the last damp threads cling to your skin like a promise this will pass. The goat settles in her corner with a thump. Your sister curls up on your other side, whispering something about a dream she had where the sun turned into a giant egg and cracked open to rain bread. You mumble something back, half asleep already, and drape an arm across your forehead, listening to the soft symphony of the room, gentle breathing, the creak of wood, the wind brushing past the shutter slats. Your father snores. Your mother hums under her breath while folding rags. No one speaks of tomorrow, but it's coming. The heat will rise again. The chores will double. The bugs will regroup. You'll sweat. You'll scratch. You'll carry water and curse the sun and wish just once for a bath with actual soap. But you'll survive, because you always do. And maybe tomorrow the breeze will last a little longer. Maybe you'll wake before the goat sneezes. Maybe the linen will still be cool. And even if it isn't, even if tomorrow is just another chapter of hot, scratchy, flea-bitten persistence, you'll rise, open the creaking door, and step barefoot onto the warm earth, like always. So now, as your eyes begin to close and the room around you fades, imagine this. You're back under that oak tree. The sun has slipped away completely, and the stars above you are soft silver freckles in a black sky. The world is quiet, truly quiet, for the first time in hours. The breeze is steady now, neither teasing nor fleeting. It kisses your skin like a whispered apology for the long, hot day. Your limbs are loose, your breath slow, and the weight of heat and labor begins to lift, not gone, but softened, wrapped in the hush of night. The linen around your shoulders cools again as dew forms. You shift slightly in your bed of straw, finding that one spot where nothing pokes or itches. And you let yourself sink, not just into the mattress, but into the stillness, into the peace that comes only after a day fully spent. You did what you had to. You endured the sun. You outlasted the hours. You kept moving, even when it felt impossible. And now this quiet, this rest, it's yours. So let the goat mumble in her sleep. Let the wind rattle the shutter. Let the stars blink you gently into the next world. You're safe, you're still, you're home. Good night.